Google Workspace is the most common email, collaboration, and file sharing platform in community media. And for good reason, the price is right. But Google Workspace does not always ship with the best settings and defaults to help keep your environment secure, but there's also other ways to help enhance your workflow and manage email addresses, accounts, and so much more. So let's dive into it. Hi, I'm Seth, and I work with community media centers on information technology, audio video engineering, operations, and outreach. And today we'll talk about Google Workspace best practices for community media. And to start off, if you're paying full price for Google Workspace, let me call your attention to the Google Workspace for Nonprofits sign up page at google.com/nonprofits, where you can get the starter tier of Google Workspace, a very feature rich tier, by the way, for no cost at all. Or if you prefer additional features like more storage or some other extras that come along with the starter or business plus tiers for Google Workspace, you can get significant discounts off the retail price. So apply for that today if you are not getting the free version of Google Workspace, or if you're considering a move from, let's say, Microsoft 365 or another platform entirely. This is the first step to get the best deal being a 501c3. And when it comes to best practices, everything takes place in the Google admin dashboard. If you haven't already dived into it, and you probably, if you're watching this, are the Google Global Administrator for your workspace environment, you can find it at admin.google.com or by clicking the apps menu, the little waffle icon in the upper right-hand corner, and then clicking on admin. And the first thing I want to talk about is helping to control account sprawl with groups and aliases. Groups and aliases will give you the convenience of another email address without having to create a new user account. And yes, even though the accounts are free for the most part, being a nonprofit, there's still a tremendous benefit in controlling account sprawl, just from a management standpoint, not needing to keep track of multiple usernames and passwords, not having to log out and log back in between accounts all the times. And even though your licenses as a nonprofit may well be free, controlling account sprawl, not needing to have multiple user accounts, helps manage security by not having to manage a whole bunch of passwords, having to log out and log back in, or losing track of accounts over time that may fall victim to an attack or just be completely forgotten about. So groups and aliases are a way to manage that. So let's talk about the alias first, which is best for a single user account. A very common practice for aliases may be when somebody changes their name. They get married, they have a new last name. You'll change their user account to reflect their new last name, but you'll keep their previous email address as an alias so that traffic coming in can reach the same person and the emails don't bounce. Another example of an alias, let's say you're an executive director and you do job postings, you may create a jobs email address, jobs@mymediaorganization.org, for example. And that alias address will allow those emails to go to you without having to publicly post your ED email address. So aliases, again, great for single users to create those multiple addresses. Groups are great for multiple users. I think a great application for this is an info box, or maybe a box where you have a shared account or where multiple users need to access a particular account, whether you're using a particular cloud service or something like that, that 2 or 3 people have to share access to. Creating a group address will allow you to create one common address, so insert name of service here, at My Media Organization. And then those emails will go to all 2 or 3 or however many different people who are on that group. It prevents them from having to, again, sign into a commonly shared address, and instead it will just land in their inbox without them having to do anything. So aliases, great for single users, groups are great for multiple users, and we can move away from needing to create an account for a one-time use email address. And just in case you're wondering, it kind of makes my brain hurt, but groups can also have aliases as well. So if you have a cloud service that you're sharing access to, or some other purpose, like maybe a government meeting address where agenda postings from a city or town clerk come. You can also have multiple aliases to those addresses if you wanted to. Taking it a step further is account delegation. Now, I think the most common use case for this is if you have the info at mailbox. Everyone has an info box. And if you haven't taken the step yet to create a group for that info box, you can prevent having to, again, log out of your own account, log back in as the info account, check email, send an email, then go back to where you first started. You can delegate access to that info box to your account, and then you can conveniently switch into that and manage email. It's also great for assistants or people who need access or you trust access to be able to send and receive email as you. Again, it's about controlling that need to log out and log back in. So delegation will allow you to send email as that delegated user. The only drawback, at least as of this video in May of 2026, is that you can't access those delegated boxes from the Gmail app. So this is only something that happens on the gmail.com website. You'll find the option to turn on delegation in the admin panel under Google Workspace and then Gmail, settings for Gmail, and then user settings. You'll then turn on mail delegation in this section. It'll take about an hour or so for it to take effect across your entire user base, but once enabled, you can go into the settings in your Gmail account and then be able to invite another user to have delegated access to your account. Now, all the tips here that I'm talking about in this video are accessible from a administrator level account, more specifically a global administrator. And typical security practice, the recommendation, although it may not always sound practical, is not to use your daily driver account, the account that you're always signed in as the administrator for your account. And since you have the benefit of free licenses, I do recommend creating a separate user account that is your admin level account for your Google Workspace tenant. The benefit here is that, number one, it prevents any accidental changes from taking place. It also is a way to help prevent phishing and other malicious attempts to gain access to the administrator level section of your account. So having that separate account that you can use in an incognito or a private tab just gives you that extra wall of security and controlling the blast radius if the worst happens and your Google account, your Google Workspace account, gets compromised at some point along the way. Now, I'll briefly touch on this. It's something I talked about in my cybersecurity trends video, and that is the email trifecta of SPF, not to be confused with sunblock, DKIM, and DMARC. These are DNS records that are added with your domain registrar or wherever your domain name services are hosted. It's a little bit advanced, but the purpose of this is to authenticate who the true sender of emails are for your domain. So, for example, you're a Google Workspace customer. What we do is we set a record that says only emails coming from Google are legitimate, so that if some other third-party entity that should not be sending emails pretending to be you tries to send an email, it's more likely to get marked as spam or outright blocked. So we're avoiding that idea of spoofing, pretending to be mail from you. The other benefit is from the outreach perspective, where having those records will improve the deliverability of your email. You're less likely to get marked as spam. Now, if you use third-party marketing services like Constant Contact or MailChimp or a CRM platform or anything else that sends emails as your domain name, you'll need to add the same records for those particular services. So it's a little bit advanced, but enabling this mail signing helps to authenticate and verify your email, taking that up to the next level. And speaking of pretending to be you, that's what impersonation protection is for in Google Workspace. Now, this is found in the safety section of the Gmail settings in the Google Workspace admin panel, and more specifically, it's under the spoofing and authentication section. It's the second line down, protect against spoofing of employee names. By default, this ships off. We want to turn that on. There's also other options like protect against domain spoofing, based on similar domains, and a bunch of other options that are enhanced. Their effectiveness is enhanced by adding those DNS records that I just talked about. So when it comes to impersonation protection, it's really neat. What it does is it looks at the list of accounts in your system where all of your employee names are, and if it sees an email coming in that is using your employee's name in the from name, it will tag it as potential spam. Now, there may be some false positives here. Let's say you frequently forward maybe a picture from your cell phone into your work email address from your own personal email address, that is technically spoofing, so you may get an impersonation flag for doing so, but you can further verify that to prevent it from happening. But the most common case for this is if, let's say, your board treasurer has an email address on your system. And since those records are usually public, either you're listing your board treasurer's name on your website or it's listed with the state records bureau, secretary of state, etc., a thief will potentially find that and they'll try to send an email using the name of your treasurer, even though it's coming from a completely randomized email address. It will still come through. So enabling this impersonation protection will throw that extra flag and encourage you to think twice before potentially there's some financial thievery that occurs. Another feature, and it's very likely that you are no longer using POP or IMAP. This is how emails were delivered maybe 5, 10, a long time ago when you're using a third-party email app. It's very uncommon since most Google Workspace use takes place in either gmail.com or the Gmail mobile app. So if you're not using any third-party email clients, now Apple Mail is actually exempted from what I'm about to talk about here. You can turn off POP and IMAP access. Again, found in the Gmail settings pane under end user access. You can disable IMAP and POP. You can also disable Google Workspace Sync for Microsoft Outlook if you are not using that. So if everything you do takes place in gmail.com or the mobile app, you can turn these off for some extra security. This prevents any unauthorized access from using these older legacy methods from trying to either gain access to your incoming mail or sending email pretending to be from you. All right, let's move on from email now and talk about Google Drive, because a common principle is that not every user in your Google Workspace should be able to send and share files with everyone widely across the internet. So I do encourage you to take a look and take inventory for who should have access to share files and how widely should they share them. Staff, full-time staff, an executive director, yeah, you'll most definitely need to share files with the outside world. But an intern or a part-timer may not necessarily, and you can granularly control that access. Now, if a particular employee is using their Google Drive to share files with the outside world more than a quarter or half of the time, you may consider using a shared drive instead. That's what this is for. It'll take some steps away. They don't always have to share with the same person over and over again. It also contains the potential risk of oversharing as well. This is found in the drive settings in Google Workspace under sharing options. And you can see here, the level of granularity is vast, from preventing people from sharing internally and externally, or just externally, or they have to be logged in with a Google account first, or it's limited to particular domain names. So you can get super granular here and really control and prevent that risk of oversharing. Speaking of oversharing, calendaring is another feature, and you can limit how external calendars are shared or how internal calendars are shared externally. By default, it's set to only free busy, but you can prevent an employee from accidentally sharing their Google Calendar with the outside world, which oftentimes can get very unwieldy very quickly. You can also limit how calendars are shared internally. Now, typically, you will allow internal sharing, so if an employee wants to share their calendar with another employee, you will typically leave this in place, but if you wanted to disable that or have more granular control over that, you can also do that too. And another common source of spam, even more so than email addresses, is coming in now from calendar invites. And Workspace offers a feature for this too under Calendar and then Advanced Settings, where you can disable calendar invitations. Now, by default, it will allow invitations to come in from everyone. You can limit it, the mid-range option, to only people that are in your contact list or with whom your employees have corresponded with in the past, or you can disable the invitations altogether. They'll come in via email and then they have to be manually approved before it ends up in your calendar. This is very common right now with tech support spams purporting to be from Geek Squad, where they'll send you a calendar invite with a phone number to call to try and deceive people into giving you money, paying them money to fix a computer. It's a whole racket right now. So calendar invites and controlling them can help manage that spam coming through. Now, I'm bearing the lead here because everything I just mentioned, you can granularly control by different levels or groups of employees. And that's what organizational units are for in Google Workspace. This is a term that comes all the way from the days of Microsoft. So you can have an OU, an organizational unit, set up for full-time staff, or maybe it's more permissive. They can do a lot more. But maybe you'll create a separate group for part-time staff where they can't share files externally. And another use case for this is for board members, where you can grant them access, put them in their own OU, and set them up with access to Google Drive, maybe for shared agendas, minutes, etc. But maybe you don't necessarily want them to have an email address on your system. So as well as being able to granularly control sharing settings and other things that we've talked about so far, you can also turn on and turn off different services based on the user by customizing organizational units. Now let's talk about YouTube. If you have a YouTube channel for your media center and it's being managed from a centralized Gmail account, I would encourage you to move towards inviting your Google Workspace users as managers for your YouTube channel. This is found in YouTube Studio, where you can set different permissions levels based on what they need: editor access, contributor access, etc. This again gets them away from needing to sign out and sign back in as a different user account, and they can just stay in their Google Workspace employee account. The benefit is convenience, and if one of your staff members moves on in the future, they're no longer with your organization, you can quickly turn off access to their Google Workspace account and not need to feverishly change the passwords on a bunch of shared accounts in order to secure your YouTube channel. And last but not least is general Google account hygiene. My rule of thumb is that no Google Workspace user should have to log out and log back into other accounts to do their daily business. The right level of permissions should be invited or assigned or delegated to their named Google Workspace account. So whenever that account waltz, as I like to call it, has to happen, it does trigger a thought for, okay, why is this happening and how can we prevent it? How can we make sure their account has what they need so we don't have to share accounts back and forth? I do generally recommend that there be one Google account per Chrome profile, preventing that cross-pollination of accounts where you may accidentally send an email or accept an invitation as one account when it was intended for another. And the same holds true with Microsoft Edge. Firefox also offers a really neat extension called multi-account containers that will allow you to isolate Google accounts if needed. So there you have it. Those are my recommendations and best practices for Google Workspace in community media. What did you think? Are there particular tips that you'd like to share? Please leave a thought in the comment below. And if you need help implementing any of these best practices, I've left a link in the description below with a contact form. I'd love to talk to you and answer some questions. Thank you so much for watching.